Okay. I'm going to just start with a little bit of just stuff that's fluff stuff. Then we'll start in the meat and potatoes in about 3 or 4 minutes. Just because I'm going to push the admit button for the next 2 minutes, and that admit button that I have to push every time is going to keep my concentration away. First off, I want to say if I do this again, anything these types of events, I will learn to do it through Facebook or some other method because this is this I know we have to like send you emails and everything else to get it there. So one of my staff who's smarter and better than me will teach me how to do it in a better way. So but all of you are on here. Our goal today, as I keep getting beeps, Hugo used to work for House Match up until the end of this year. Then he went over to PM Solutions Pro. And what Hugo did is during COVID, we had to come up with a way that we could do interior property assessments and get them done in a correct fashion and still do them because we weren't going into houses, we weren't going anywhere. And so my buddy Andy Wallace, a lot of you probably know from the inspector, he started telling me how we could do them remotely. And so everyone that I know went to doing remote interior property assessments where you just send it to the tenant figures it out, turns it back to you. To me, that's great, but it wasn't the way we wanted to do it. We wanted to have a house match employee. First off, can everyone hear me? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We want to have a house match employee that was involved in it because if I have a house match employee involved in it, if an owner says if an owner says, you know, hey Matt, the one I did this for, he's just got here, so good. So if an owner says, hey, you know, we are involved in it. And Hugo can kind of tell you a couple stories. Like when he's doing it with them, you find a lot about the property. You know, where if you send it to the tenant, you still find a lot about the property, but you find more. So Hugo, an interior property assessment, doing it over the phone takes 20 minutes, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, about 20 minutes.
So it takes 20 minutes. And what are the big things that you find by being on there that you wouldn't find if you just gave it to the tenant?
One of the major things is faulty smoke detectors and illegal pets that aren't on the lease. Will be the main one.
So people are actually smarter when you have an inspection that you're going to their house about their pet. They send it to their neighbor down the street. But when you're doing it over the phone, they're not as smart, I guess. But you know, their dog will be like on their lap as they're doing the inspection, or you'll hear it barking or running up the stairs, or there's cat litter under the sinks or something like that. So it is. So we're still looking for that pet. Why? Because we get pet rent. We want that money. And we want the owners to know it too. But we also want to know what's in there. What are some other things that you find by doing it? I don't want to say in person, but from Mexico over the phone.
Another one was I was able to find like a running toilet seat that was causing a lot of water damage. So without being able to see that through the photos and talking to the tenants over the phone with, it would have been missed and it would have turned into a bigger disaster.
So how did you see that when you were doing it remotely? That doesn't make sense to me.
While we're doing it remotely, the photos do come in real time. So as you're refreshing your page, you start seeing like watermarks on the floor or like weird stains. So then you just like, oh, you know, just kind of bring it up like, oh, you know, I noticed something in the last photo you just took. Like, is there something you needed to tell us about the toilet? Is there like water been running lately? And they're like, oh yeah, you know what? Thank you for bringing it up. It just slipped my mind. Yes, we have noticed like a little brown stain like on the floor, and then from there, that's when we send out one of our vendors. And
that's also when you'll ask them for more detailed photos. If you see something, you'll say like, "Hey, can I get a couple more photos of that toilet area if you're seeing something because you're seeing it in real time too."
Exactly. Yeah. So from there, you can ask like, "Oh, can you just go back one more time and take a few more pictures from afar or around certain areas like this?" And that kind of does help a lot more.
The other thing is smoke detectors. If I have a 4-bedroom house, 2 stories, how many smoke detectors are they going to have in that house?
One in each bedroom and one in each corridor.
So how many would that be?
We have 6.
Okay. So like when you see 5 smoke detectors, you'll say, and you know that it's a 4-bedroom house and you've seen 5, then that happens a lot too, right? Where they take 5 photos of smoke detectors, and then you're like, "Where's the 6?" Correct?
That is correct. Yeah, and usually they say, "Oh, I took it down because it was beeping," and you're like, "Oh, we really do need you to put it back up." And while you're on the phone, they do put it back up, and you just have them take a picture of it, so all 6 can be activated again.
So, and the other thing is they might not even know one existed, and it might be one that's old or needs to be exchanged. So that was one thing. The other thing is you also ask them to go in the backyard, front yard. You can ask them questions about holes dug and stuff like that. You're actually having conversations with them during this, correct?
Yeah, exactly, and it just makes them feel a little more. I don't know. It goes a lot more funner when you're able to talk with the tenant over the phone, kind of just have some fun with it, make them feel like you're both enjoying it, and not just make it look like a chore. So it just goes smoother.
So, and then if you red flag a property, like you're like, I'm concerned, what is your step when you red flag a property that you have concerns about that they're, are doing damage, or that, maybe you can't smell the house from Mexico, but when you red flag a property, what do you do?
Usually, when I red flag a property, I'll contact the property manager and the maintenance coordinator and kind of create a meeting together so we can discuss the photos that came in and see what's the best way we can send someone in person to kind of just look at those main items that kind of just like were a big red flag.
So that's one of the big things we do. If he's going through it and his job is not to argue with them, to go through that. If he goes through it and he sees that there's a red flag, then we'll say we're going to send someone next week. We want some follow up. We want to just make sure. Like, let's say they have poles against the water. You can always find a reason why you'd want to send someone in person. Yeah, there's always stains near a water heater. 99% of the time, if the water heater just has stains, so you always be like, oh, we're just going to send someone. We want to check out the water heater. And now you might be checking out something else, but you don't want to be confrontational. But we always just so what happens is, for us at least, 98% of our properties, the tenants are keeping them in great condition. Would you agree with that, Hugo? Probably 98. It's just the 2%.
Yeah, I would agree.
Every once in a while, it's a front yard or backyard issue, and usually we've already been dealing with that. But it's also reassuring when they have a really bad backyard. Some people just don't care about yards. That when they went in the house, it's still nice. And we might have thought, oh, it's a really bad house, but you can tell from remotely if they're taking care of the property. It's just it is something. Is it as good as going in person? No, it's not as good as going in person. Is it safer for your property manager? It's a lot safer. It's a lot safer for your property manager. They're not going to get a car crash there. They're not going to be in the property. It's safer. Tenants don't have to worry about with their kids and, oh my gosh, I have to deal with, my kid's going to be taking a nap, all the different things. I mean, their kid's taking a nap, they're still going to be having to set them smoke detectors off. That's going to wake them up. But it's just a lot easier for your tenants. We do, and I'm going to show you my lease. So I'm going to start off by showing you. This was kind of going over the overview of why we do them. Some people might ask, like, why even do them? So I'm always about. It's always nice to make money on something. So I'm going to just show you my lease of how we make money on these. And it took me a year to do this, but let me find it. Oops. Actually, I will stop sharing mine. I'm going to find it exactly where it is, and I'm going to have Hugo start by sharing his lead simple portion of it. I'll find my lease, then I'll interrupt him with the lease, but I'm going to show you how we make money in it, how it's part of our lease. Now, like I said, we put in our lease and we spent a year. So for the first year, we didn't enforce it at all. Like when someone said, screw you, come in person, we'd be like, okay, we'll come in person. Now we have monetary incentives to make it so that yeah, we're happy to send someone there because we'll make money. So Hugo, why don't you share with them the process and Lead Simple, how you do it, and then I'm gonna cut to the lease.
Perfect. Okay, let me share a link with everybody. It's going to be the flow chart of the interior property assessment, so it'll be a little easier to follow along too. Give me one moment. I'm going to send the link in this chat. Let me know if you guys are able to view this link. And the entire screen, perfect. Okay. And I'm sharing my screen. Give me one moment, please. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off my camera because I'm looking to the side. Okay, so from Lead Simple, we usually start on the process of starting the interior property assessment. We want to make sure that all owners and tenants who are financially responsible are in part of the process. As soon as we have them in the process, we want to ensure that in in the inspector, all the tenants who are added are the correct ones on the lease at the moment. And once we send over the inspector invite on the flow chart, as you can see, I'll move this over here. And in the flow chart, as you can see, it kind of just goes step by step of just making sure that everything's set up in the inspector and in Lead Simple. Then from there, we schedule the appointment with the tenants. Once it's scheduled with the tenants, we usually have a little loop if we're not able to get a hold of the tenants, just to follow up with them, make sure everything is set for the date and time. Once it is scheduled, the day of the assessment, we want to contact the tenants and make sure that they do have the application, the inspector installed and ready to log in. If they're not able to download it at the moment, we will walk them through to do it over the phone. It takes less than 5-10 seconds. As soon as we walk them through it, we start going through the inspection, which is going to be, give me one moment. The inspection on the tenant's end side is going to look like a little bit like this. This is what the tenant will see. It will have their property address, the tenant's name, and it'll start off with just a pet question. They'll ask you, is there any pets living at the property? If there is, please take pictures of the pets. Once they have taken pictures of the pets, as they go along, you'll walk them through just like, okay, now from the pets, can you please move over to the front yard, take 4 to 5 pictures of the front yard. Once you're completed doing this, you can always just, as you're seeing this, you can just tell them like, just make sure you select pictures taken so you can load more questions. Now, one of the newest features we just added, which is it's amazing, is we enabled video. So now we're able to record the smoke detectors. Before it was just having them take a picture of it while we're over the phone with them, so we can hear if the smoke detectors are going off or not. But now that they're able to record, they can go to the camera icon and they'll have 2 options: either use the camera or just take a photo. But with the camera, they're able to actually record this smoke detector, and we'll be able to hear it and have it recorded that smoke detector does work. So that's actually a really cool feature that was just added. So from there, we just walk the tenant through the inspection. Once we're done with the inspection, we go over any photos afterwards to make sure that anything doesn't look out of the ordinary.
Hugo, yes. The inspection, just so you know, we also have them look under the sinks, every sink,
yes,
the kitchen sink, every sink in every bathroom. Now we say it's for looking for mold or for looking for any water damage, which is something that we do. But you find a lot about a property from under the sink. All of a sudden, someone with no pets has cat litter under the sink. When they're looking under the sink, we'll also, like Hugo said, we ask them, is there anything on the toilet area or anything that we would need to see? We also ask them to take pictures of the water heater because we want to make sure that they don't have like boxes and stuff piled up against it as a fire hazard.
Or any rust in the pans.
Yeah, rust in the pan. So we look at the water heater, try to figure out where we're at with that. We have them, besides the sinks and the water heater, what else are we having them take pictures, go through?
So we have them take pictures of the front and backyard. We have them take photos and videos of smoke detectors under the kitchen and bathroom sinks, just to make sure, like I said, there is no mold or there's anything. Under the kitchen sinks, we also have them take photos of air filters.
We have to take a look at the garage because we want to make sure that they're not having a business that's going to have an HOA issue, or that they don't. If it's piled with boxes and the HOA is not complaining, we don't really care. But if the HOA ever complains about their car being in the parking and parked wrong or something, then at least when we go back to it, we're like, well, the garage was empty, HOA. Like, we can send that picture to the HOA. If it's filled with stuff and we have to have them move it because the HOA gets mad, now we can be like, hey, the HOA is now in your case. You got to get rid of this stuff. We honestly don't care if someone puts boxes in their garage, but we don't like to have all that time to have to deal with HOA when it comes. And you can tell if their pictures of the garage also tell you a lot about their living situation. If it's filled with trash in the garage, it's different than boxes. Like if it's just disgusting and you see like 50 McDonald's bags and stuff like that, that's very different than someone who has their thing filled to the rim with boxes.
Correct. Yes. So yeah, the garage smoke detectors, air filters is very important. That
Oh yeah.
we do work with Second Nature, and they send out the filters every 6 months to tenants to make sure that everything is like they have new filters coming in. And if they're switching it out, usually there's we have them write the date in, or if
The date's actually written on the filter from Second Nature, so we know that they filled it because the Second Nature, when it mails it out, has the date on the filter. So when they're looking at the filters, if they say, "Oh, that filter's downstairs," it's a great time when they're doing this for them to put a new filter in at that point. And the reason we're 6 months, I know a lot of you are going to be like, I'm in Arizona, we do it every month, but we're in California, we don't have that bad of weather. You don't use air conditioning or heating that often. So we get that the normal average is every 3 months, depending on where you're located. But it's just, we might use air conditioning a couple of weeks out of the year and heat a couple of weeks out of the year. It's just not our. So those are the big things. I'm going to go now and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you the lease. And so that you can see what we put in the lease. So I don't care if they want us to do it, but this is added to our lease. An interior property assessment is required twice a year. The IPA will be done in this. Oh, and the big thing is we never use the word inspection. We are not inspectors. We are property managers. We are not licensed inspectors. Don't use that word. You never want that word in court. You never want to have that going through. Even though the real estate commission at the end calls it your move-in inspection, your move-out inspection, we found that that's not a good word to use. So we call it an IPA. I like IPAs too. They're a good type of beer. IPA can be done virtually with a house match employee, or a house match employee can do it for a tenant at a cost of $150. House match will notify a tenant when an IPA is due. If the IPA is not completed within 30 days of the request, the tenant will be assessed a $50 fine each month until the IPA has been completed. So tenant, don't do the IPA. Great, we're going to charge you $50 every single month until it's completed. It takes us 7 months. That's $350 more for that. Why do we have it there? Would we ever charge that $50 per month? No, I don't believe we've ever charged it as a company. But when you have tenants that are being jerks, you have to have something that's and to like say, look, I understand you don't want to do it, but if you delay it, it's going to cost you. So that's why we put that in there. Very, very simple terms. For exterior property assessments, this is the other thing we're showing. Tenants will take a minimum of 5 photos of the front yard using a mobile app provided by HouseMatch every 2 months. HouseMatch will send a reminder to tenants when the EPA is due. If tenant does not complete the exterior property assessment or chooses HouseMatch to take the photos for them, there'll be a $50 charge for exterior property assessment. Taking photos of the front yard is a requirement by the owner in order to make sure the yard is maintained to avoid an HOA violation. With that, they have the first month, we put them in a prize category. Everyone who gets it done qualifies for a prize. The second month, we remind them that, hey, get it done or we're going to be upset. The third, and then at a certain point, a third month, we send our people out there and we charge them. We don't ask them, we just send them, we take the photos, and now we charge them that $50. That is one that we do charge. And so then the second that charging comes up, then it starts up again. And we do everybody for every single house with an EPA the same exact schedule. We don't want to have, oh, this person's due in January, this person's due in February. It's just, okay, we have I don't care how many houses you have, 500 or 200, whatever that, 150 doors. The email gets sent out to everybody. Everybody who does it, we have a tracking system that keeps track of it. At the end of that time, all the emails, which I'll show you in Lead Simple, are automated. At the end of that time, okay, we have these 10 properties that didn't do it. Okay, we send an employee to go do it. 10 properties at $50 a pop. That's $500. So it pays for that employee to take the photos. Our goal is not to make it a profit center. Our goal is to get it compliance and get it done. Like if I could have everybody do it and make $0, I'm perfectly fine with that. But there is profit in people being non-compliant. If you're not going to be compliant, it's going to cost me work. I should make some money on it. So that's how we had in the lease. Like I said, I put in my lease those exact wording. I didn't do anything for an entire year. I have never charged anyone. So I think I put it in about last January, a year ago. So everybody's lease it would be in unless they're a new person. And if honestly, if I'm taking over someone else's lease and they say, screw you, we'll go out there and we'll do it. If it's not on their lease, I'm not going to, we can't charge them. But it's just something, it's a cool thing to have. Okay, that was the lease. I will stop sharing and I will let, so basically we have two things on this thing. We have Lead Simple that we use to keep the process going straight. And then we have Z Inspector. Now, I wanted Andy to talk to you about Z Inspector. Is a really cool new app. Z Inspector actually will take House Match, and the tenants have a House Match app now. This just came out like a month ago. So with every one of your companies, Z Inspector will get, and so now once they have that on their phone, they go to the House Match app, they can do the exterior property assessment. They don't have to download it. It's just like, it's very simple, it's very easy. With that app, you can allow reminders. It has a bunch of stuff. Andy, do you want, before Andy starts, I'm just gonna say one thing. That we have the PM Systems Conference that's in September, at the end of September. It's a hands-on conference, and I'm doing this in the middle right now. But I would, if you haven't looked into it or haven't not gone, I would suggest you go. The difference between PM Systems Conference is like I attend university. For an hour and a half, we explain how I did it, and you work on it, you finish it. You're not just listening to speakers; you're getting stuff done. So we'll put a link in there. But Andy, can you want to go in and kind of show them, and then we're going to go back to Hugo. I just want you to show how the app will actually make it to your company specific.
Sure. Hey, thank you for having us here, Paul, too. Let's see, I'll try and share my screen. So yeah, if you go to on the Z Inspector website, and hopefully you can all see that here, but if you go to settings, admin settings, and then if you scroll down to the Z Tenant App Builder. And so what this is why we kind of came up with this is, we had tenants doing move-in inspections, we had tenants doing kind of periodic inspections. Well, we wanted to come up with a way, let's find out a way for them to keep it on all the time, right? So it's like just kind of it's a different way to use it. So it's the exact same app. So whether you're inviting the tenant to do an inspection or when they're finished with it, it's going to be your own app. And so basically you can just upload your own logo here. That's the same logo that's showing your reports. You just change the name. And then you can, optionally add that link anywhere. You can email it someone. You could put it in your lease. You could add it to their website. And then anyone could just click it, and then it would download this app. And that'll have all of your links to your existing services. So you just basically add them here. So if you want them to submit a maintenance ticket in Property Meld or pay rent through Appfolio or whatever that is, or email you here, you just put in all those different services here, and then it'll work. And then once you invite them to do an inspection, like Paul's, interior property assessment, it'll change to that exact template just for that property. And then when they're finished, it'll flip back to your own app. So you're seeing a lot of kind of great stuff with that. And so, Paul, hopefully that answers that question.
That answers that question. And I mean, those of you, I've known Andy since his app came out. If you're not using Z Inspector, it is very, very easy for this process. It makes it very easy. And it's a great, great product. So, you could get away without Lead Simple. You could get away with, you could have another process, we use Lead Simple, but you could get away with having another systems type thing running your stuff. And I don't know the other inspection apps out there, but I don't know if you could get away without the Z Inspector. Makes it easy. Okay, we're gonna go back to Hugo.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Hugo?
All right, let me share the flow chart of the exterior property assessment. Give me one moment. I'm sending the message.
So are you just sharing the flow chart? Why don't we just show,
Share my
like-
screen a bit.
well, yeah, like, let me just show, before you show that, let me go into the interior property assessment and actually, I'm gonna share, what is in that interior property assessment. So this is our interior property assessments. You can see that there's these two are, working on right now. But let's just look at what it would look like inside stages and workflows. So, within there, we have an IPA when we need it done. So this is just when they're starting this off. It shows who the person is. Linda's doing it. What triggered this process? This is just making sure all this is correct. This takes more than 2 seconds. This is not even valid. We don't have subrunners. But a lot of these steps are skipped if they're not valid. So, like when you make these processes up, so the biggest thing about having a something like Lead Simple is we don't want to create the text, create the emails, create all that. So you can make it so that they're automatic. This is in the renewal process. It turns to the IPA process. They have to do the IPA. So, and this is my old one. But anyway, you can put all the text messages in here. You can put all the emails in here, and so that it can be done remotely, and it doesn't take a lot of time. So virtual IPA. Now there's 6 steps to a virtual IPA. So the first part was just coordinating. Then there's 6 steps to it. We have a confirmation text that we send, and basically we create lease and Z inspector send to tenant. Complete the virtual IPA with the tenant. Once this is done, this is gonna, and this is all gonna change now that Andy has that app, because it's gonna be a lot easier to do future ones. They mark it as complete and it's done. The Lead Simple part keeps track. I mean, the main reason for doing this is it keeps track that BLR Colorado masters are not finished. So they're due April 16th. And they're not done. So by having something like that, it helps keep you in order, and so you know what's going on. Because the biggest thing that happens is you're gonna have problems if you have 50 IPAs going on at once. Which ones got done? Which ones didn't get done? So whether you're using Monday, Lead Simple, Process Straight, whatever it is, you want to have it so it's a pretty simplistic process. For the EPA, it's a completely different process because everything happens at once.
That is correct. It's the other one, Paul. It's
It's this one right here. This
It's
one.
called no. There's the other one, the revised version of it. It's called
you did
remote.
revise?
Yes,
Remote exterior property assessment?
correct. Yes.
See, I don't deal with my processes, so that my staff is going to tell me what's going on more than I will. So this one's done by month. Start exterior property assessment. There's 13 steps. Second month, there's 7 steps. The third month, there's 4 steps. And then after 3 months, it recycles. So basically, what this one will say is Z inspector bulk invite. We're sending bulk invites. You kind of want to go through what the steps are, why you created it this way, Hugo, for the exterior property assessment and the vision behind it.
So the vision behind it was I had this dream and no. So the bulk invite is just a lot easier, like you mentioned earlier. It's easier to keep all the tenants to do it all at the same time instead of individually sending one to, we'll say, 200 plus properties, keeping track of who has done it, who hasn't done it, who's due in May, who's due in October. So it's easier just to do everything on the first of the month. We'll say January 1st, being able to send it on that date, and then from there quarterly, do it every quarter. Quarterly, sorry, yeah.
We do it every quarter. Even though I wrote in my lease, you saw that to do every 2 months. We do it every quarter. It's always better to have in there something that's more extensive than what your requirement is. So my lease says every 2 months, but we only do it 4 times a year.
Correct. And the good thing about the EPA is that if you constantly keep getting that one house who keeps getting violation from the HOA, you're now able to see, okay, is it true that the HOA is just picking on this new property, or is it in fact the tenant has been falling behind on keeping their maintenance? I'm sorry, their lawn, you know, nice looking. So that was the whole point of the EPA too, and it's just easier. I mean, with the gas prices in California, you're saving so much more money from having to send out an in-person to go out there and drive by when you can just have the tenant do it in what the EPA is like 2 questions, 3 questions max. So the tenant will probably spend 1 minute on the EPA.
And then what did we give out as a prize? We gave out, like, is it
It's a $50 prize for the first tenant to complete it. Well, you put their name in a raffle.
It was we had a raffle for, if you got it done in the first 2 weeks after we asked for it, we did a $50 prize. So as a company, we paid that because it's a lot cheaper for us to get people to do it quickly instead of to hound people down. So for $50, if every one of my tenants, and I'd pay $500 if I could get everyone to do it in one day and have it back to me and not have to have any work.
Exactly. Yeah. And so for the first month is just following up with the first reminder of the EPA. And the second month is you're doing more just looking for all the inspections are coming in, keeping an eye on them, making sure there's no maintenance that's required. By the third month, like once you get to the third month, is when you just make sure that all the EPAs who have been invited, all the tenants have been invited, have been completed. Follow up with the property manager and the head maintenance department person, and start going over all the photos. Once they're all viewed and everything looks perfect, that's when we start sharing with the owner so they can have also that feel of, you know what, they are keeping my house looking very well. Like maybe I do want to renew my lease when the next lease date is up.
Well, and it also makes us look as a company like it's more points of touch. Tenants doing it, we're doing some work on the other end, but think about those, even 4 more points of touch to an owner that, hey, you know what, this is what we're doing. And we are doing something. We're the other really important thing is, one last important thing, and then I'll get to you, Andy, is one of the problems is that how do we keep track of the EPAs? Well, we keep track because we log our EPAs in Appfolio. Every time we do, there's an inspection spot where you put the date. So then we just use a report, and that report will tell us anyone who hasn't get it done. So when we get a report in, they change that date in Appfolio. So at the end of 3 months, anyone who's still 3 months or bad, they didn't turn it in. They're getting that fine. So that's the way we do it. So we're not sitting there typing in, oh, let's look at all 300 properties or whatever it is. That would take forever. So when an EPA gets in, one of the steps is to upload the date in Appfolio. And then that report will tell us who hasn't done it, who has. Where the IPAs, they're more intensive. We're having actual person with them. So the IPAs, we have a whole process. We know when it's done because you actually sat there with the meeting with them. So the EPAs, we wanted to be more self-guided. And Andy, I'm sorry, Andy, you go ahead.
I was just going to say there, if you're doing the bulk invites, or really for all of your invites, so on the kind of tenants tab, and so those who know it kind of already kind of know that, but this supports thousands of tenants easily. And so on this tenant inspection column, you can search on your last status. And so that will then right there, it'll say expired if they didn't finish it, or submitted if they finished it. And you could quickly search right there and like just show you your expired ones. So, and then it's really easy to click and then send that person a new invite. So it's all set up automatically on the invitation. So I'll kind of show you that, like it's setting reminders, the expiration, they're going to get daily reminders, when the disabled, all that's kind of, you can set your defaults, that's all done. But when they get expired, it'll show that here. So it'll be really easy to see that. And then the other thing you can do is basically that bulk tool. It's not available to all customers. You got to check your plan, but you can go here and then say data bulk invite. And one kind of little like nice feature of that, you can do a filter like on your lease end date and say, show me all leases ending, within the next 90 days, and send all of those people a tenant renewal request or something like that. So keep that in mind as tools as well.
So for the exterior property assessment, what Andy's saying is basically you don't even need any type of lead simple Monday or anything else. You could do it all within here. One of the things we do need to do with the inspectors, we need to get rid of all of our units that have moved out or are gone. Because I do know that we've never, in 10 years with the inspector, however long we've been with the inspector, however long it's been around, we never in the past got rid of units because it wasn't a necessity. But now that Z Inspector is much different than it was when it came out 8 years ago, 10 years ago. How long has Z Inspector been around?
First software was sold 2014. So,
Okay,
so there you go.
So probably been with the Z Inspector for 7 years. So for the last 7 years, it's very different software. And that's why I love having Andy on these things because, that's just something that is great to know for us too.
And by the way, if you're what you're going to look for is the status column there. If you see that there, that status column. So a property could have multiple leases with it. So you would just change them to, we call it SD return. That's your security deposit return. That's your inactive tenants. So your old tenants could be there and your new tenants would be there. If you're synced with Appfolio, or Jen asked about Redvine, we sync there too. That will put the tenants there automatically. So in the active or inactive there as well automatically. Or you can do it manually by changing the status if you're doing it manual.
And another thing too, Andrew, is when you send out the bulk invite, you can actually disable the expiration so it doesn't expire in the next 7 days or 30 days, depending on how you have it on the settings. So for the EPA, that would work great since like a 3-month period, so you don't have to resend out the invitation.
Yeah, you could do it that way. I would actually probably recommend to do the bulk invite, but set the invitation date to be in the future. So if you just wanted to queue it up, you could queue it up. And so, and then it's all queued up, and on the status, it'll say scheduled. And so, and then it won't do anything until it's scheduled.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So as you can see, there's a ton of ways that you can do exterior and interior property assessments. It's just kind of like, I don't know, I would see a show of hands if I was in a meeting, but how many of you still do showings in person? I'm sure not that many of you do showings in person anymore. But if I were to ask this question 5 years ago, there would be one person that doesn't do them in person, or 10%. Now it's much more common to do things where tenants are seeing properties using things like Tenant Turner or Show Mojo or Rently or one of those where they're going without you. Same is true now with exterior property assessments, interior property assessments. We started, because of COVID, people had to think differently. And so now that we're seeing this and we're seeing that we can still get a really good idea of a property by doing this, how many times do I take over a property from another management company where they have not been in the property, have not done an inspection of the front yard, and they managed it for 7 years and they haven't been there since they moved them in 7 years ago? I mean, so your competitors are doing a really bad job a lot of times because they don't have the staff, they don't have whatever it is of getting to see the property. And it's very, very expensive staffing wise to go the other route. And so this is a good hybrid because we can still get people in there. Matthew, you had a question.
I just wanted to circle back and just tell everybody that, just to kind of touch what you were talking on earlier, it might look complicated and you might not know where to start with all this, but just to echo what Paul was saying earlier, you can knock out 2 or 3 of these systems at that systems conference. So just think, if you just got this done over the course of a few days, let alone multiple things, how much better your business is going to run. So and I'm going again. I've been to multiple and I'm going again, just throwing that out there. It might sound complicated or like a lot of steps, but there's a lot of people there that can help you and guide you. Just FYI.
And I believe Hugo Rocks is a $100 discount code that we have for this event, right?
Let me check that email.
I think it is Hugo Rocks. David, right? So Hugo Rocks, $100 off. It's 4 days, and it's right now it's $800. The full price is $1,000. With $100 off, you can go for $700. Uh, you will get a ton of value. I mean, we have 70 something people signed up, and we sell out at 100. We keep it small. It started with 10 people. I don't know if there's anyone that's original that went for the first original one with the 10 people. And it was done because I didn't want to pay for a speaker, and I wanted to divide the money by 10 people. So, and then it just got, you will get a lot of work done. It's in Vegas. It's not on the strip. It's about 20 minutes away from Vegas. And this is the type of stuff we spend a lot of time doing, but we have lots of them. One of our big presenters is Wolfgang Krosky. If you don't know him, he's the Zap King. If you like Zapier, I don't like Zapier. I mean, I like what Zapier does. I just don't like to deal with it. But he'll teach you Zapier. You know, Hugo will be there. I will be there teaching different things with processes and systems. Sherry, you were one of my originals, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
You were one of the 10, weren't you?
I was, yeah. It was fun. A good time. But I missed like the first minute. I think I just wanted to get clarification. So is Lead Simple like a program that just helps you process Street and stuff?
Lead Simple is Process Street. So Lead Simple, Process Street, Monday. So the difference between all those is Process Street works for all the industries. Monday's all the industries. Lead Simple just concentrates on the property management industry. That's all they're focused on, and they're selling what
Didn't they used to be like I thought they were brought you business, Lead Simple.
They are a BDM software, and then they moved it in their process. So Lead Simple went to all my conferences, and they did a lot of research. So they were one of the ones who was like, "Hey, can we just show up at your conference and hang out, and we'll buy everyone dinner?" And I'm like, "Okay." And so for about 3 years, they did that, and then they came up with a process. But they were talking to people and asking property managers, "What do you need in software?" So they've just focused on our industry. But anyone with any software, you can go to my systems conference and be using paper and pens, and not know what you're doing, not have anything down, and we're gonna help you get that. Like I said, you're gonna create stuff there. That's the main thing. Is it's a goal for you to create stuff. But that.
And the other question, I did have another question.
Yeah.
Well, so I think I missed the part that you're charging for it. What can you explain that a little bit more?
Charging for my conference?
No, not the conference. More on this exterior property assessment.
PM Solutions Pros. If you want to do it, you're more than welcome to do it. If you want help, PM Solutions Pro can help you. So if someone wants us to create it for them, we will create it for them.
You will, but create this.
PM Solutions Pro, Hugo, that's in the screen of who's been talking to you. He will create it for you. He will work with you. He'll give you what ours is. Then he will conform it and make it so that it's set up for your company. So it's made. So
do they integrate with Rent Manager?
Z Inspector integrates with Rent Manager.
Yeah, we use the Inspector.
So
maybe I can connect with them afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is just doing helping you out. So PM Solutions Pro has hourly rates for people who want just hey, I want 10 hours a month of, when I have a question on process and I'm building them out, and I want someone who, like I said, some people like Zapier, and Hugo and David like Zapier. I don't, just because it's complicated and it drives me crazy, but that's not my gift. So it's just, if you want that where you're working on your process and you say, "Hey, can you help me with it?" Or if you want us to create your process for you, that's what PM Solution Pro does. At the event, you go to the event, we're going to teach you how to create. The best thing in the world, create your processes, create them yourself, work on your processes. But there's, as a business owner, we only have so much time in the day. So get the help you can when you can make it. But when you go to this event, you're going to be sitting there doing processes. Is there any questions about exterior or interior property assessments? Any way we can help you and so that you can get these done? I mean, like I said, Andy is a great avenue. Andy has people that work for Z Inspector that when you have questions, they will, if you're with Z Inspector, you can call their helpline and they will help you for free and all this stuff with the Z Inspector setup. So if you want to have the time to set up your Z Inspector, Andy's the guy to go to, or we can do it for you. The difference is if you're with Andy, Andy's free. If his right? Is that correct, Andy? Right?
Yeah, we work really hard on the tech support. So if you guys need anything, let us know. And actually, there's two specific features you should know about that might help this case that are not on by default. When you are, we have a new feature that we've started enabling on counts called in progress inspection backup. So you might have seen it, you've got an in progress inspection. So as people start to type in things, their stuff will start backing up real time, as well as we'll do a periodic screenshot. You'll of course also see the photo. So if you're going to be dealing with the tenants on the phone, this is an especially important feature to have enabled. It's going to be a couple months before it's globally enabled everywhere, but if you just email us support, we will enable that feature for you. So that could be useful to see as they're typing. The other one is videos are off. The video option is off by default for tenants. It's very easy to enable, but just contact support. Let us know what templates, and we can show you exactly how to enable that. So those are two things to keep in mind that are not there but by default, but will help you if you're doing this process. And if you need any help, we got a full team ready to help.
Yeah, they do, and they're an amazing team. And it's true. Yeah, it took like no more than a few seconds just to figure out how to enable it in the app.
Yeah, we really
Thank you.
we really like working with the inspector. We've worked with every most of the the softwares for processes. Again, there's not a wrong process software. You just have to like it. I've used Asana. I started with that's like the basic beginner one. Then from Asana, we went to Process Street. Correct, David? Is that correct? We went to Process Street, then we went to Lead Simple. So, I mean, that was my progression. I went to Lead Simple from Process Street, not because I hated Process Street. I actually liked Process Street quite a bit. I went to it because it was just the integration of what it was doing. So, and then at first, David was not very happy about us going to Lead Simple, and then now he loves it. So, if you're with Process Street and you have everything built out, my thing would be continue to build that stuff out. If you're with Monday and you have everything built out, continue to do that. If you have nothing, then just get something. So it will help you out. But you can wait until September and figure it out then. Couple of any other questions on the exterior and interior property assessment? And anyone else? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, feel free to contact PM Solutions Pro, and we'll be happy to help you build it out if you need help. If you, like I said, you can also just get hourly if you want to do it yourself and you get stuck and you're like, hey, I want to make this zap so it works with this or that. My suggestion for anyone building out processes, if you're not really been doing it for a while, don't get caught in the zaps. Zaps should be a 6 month to 1 year in processes. You shouldn't start out by trying to make everything automated. Just try to make things so you know where it is and so you know how it is. And once you get it going really well, then automate. Can the video sent to the tenant be changed? The video sent to the tenant. I don't need. What do you mean by changed? Laura, can I ask? Can you? You mean
Yeah.
to the tenant? Yeah.
That's actually a brand new feature, Laura, that we have not announced yet, but yes. So one, we're changing our own default video. You can also make your own video and add that link. So yes, that can be changed now very easily. If you email support at ZInspector, they can tell you how, or there's going to be an email on that in the next 1 to 2 weeks that will go out.
Okay, well, if there is no other questions at this time, hopefully you got something out of this. You know, and if you, like I said, and if you just want to talk, you know, property management, I'm always open for different things. I'm Paul Kinkowski. I with PM Solutions Pro. I'm also part of Pure and Pure Property Management. So everybody, have a wonderful day, and see you at the next time we see someone.